Welcome to our video series of conversations with readers of our book, Building Trust and Relationship at the Speed of Change. I'm Kathy Jourdain. I'm here with my partner, Jerry Nagel, and our guest of today, Keith LaQua. So Keith, I'm going to invite you to say a few words about yourself.
Well, hello, I'm Keith LaQua. I live in Los Angeles, California. I'm a dear and old friend of Jerry. We've gone through many battles together on many levels. And because we have such a unique friendship, we've been able to continue that friendship over all of these years. And it's one of those situations where there's so much water under the bridge, even if we wanted to, we couldn't break up. I worked with Jerry for a while, so I saw him up close and personal. And he's just an amazing man. And I love him, and it's been amazing to watch his growth and experience over the years and all the things that he's put together that's led him to the job that he's doing now and the work that he's doing now. And I think it's something singular and unique. And I think that people are going to need that in the coming years, and especially now. It seems so extraordinarily timely, people actually being able to talk together in a way that maybe perhaps they have an understanding and a background as to where they're coming from through some very interesting systems that Jerry and Kathy have devised. And so I'm excited about their work, and I'm very honored to be a part.
Well, really, thank you, Keith, for your kind comments. It certainly has been, oh my gosh, a 50-year enduring friendship, and there just aren't very many of them in the world that last as long as ours has, and I'm so appreciative of it. I often describe you as my best friend, which is true. So we really appreciate you having read the book, and just any general impressions about the book itself that you might want to share with us.
Well, I'm coming from a bit of a writer's standpoint, so that's where I've sort of looked at it, and there were a couple of areas that sort of fascinated me. The whole area of working with the brain, things like cognitive dissonance and learning about the amygdala.
Mm-hmm.
Seizure just fascinated me, and I think everyone on some level can relate to that, and the importance of that. You can go very deep in some of these things that Jerry and Kathy have set up. It's not just a system for people socializing and working together. It goes deeper than that. It goes into the internal elements of a person, and I found that very valuable. And I was like 3 hours away from a psychology major before I started to move on to something else. I have an interest in that, and especially as a writer, I'm always very curious about it. I found that section particularly to be very interesting and very worthwhile.
We really appreciate your perspective, both from your almost completed psychology degree and from your writer's point of view as well. And one of the things that we're curious about is, what do you think makes this book accessible to readers?
It's a very well-crafted book. I mean, in any new venture, a new area of thought, there's always lingo and acronyms and things that go with it. So, it's always something you have to ingest when you're reading something new and trying to understand, what it is that they're trying to say and where they're coming from. So I think you were very aware of that, which I liked. One of the things you did from a writing standpoint that I thought was very valuable was the fact that you would help the audience anticipate what was coming. And you talked about, we're going to go further into this on such and such chapter. And so you kind of kept that in your mind and was aware that it was coming and that it would be more fully advanced. The fact that you would give of yourselves. I had a friend, Michael Foster, who's a sociologist, and he used to talk about working with clients and getting them to speak. And one of the things back then, he said, traditionally, they told you not to do was to, share too much of yourself, and that wasn't valuable and not a good thing, and you must keep distance and all of that. He came to his own conclusions about that, and at some point he realized that there were just some clients that if you didn't share some of yourself with them, you couldn't sort of get past a certain wall that would be there. And so he started to do that, and of course had good luck with that, because once you shared yourself and opened yourself up and made yourself vulnerable, people are more likely to do the same. And so I noticed that both you and Jerry had stories that related to yourself and things that had happened, and then shared them. And I like that a lot, because it could be kind of dense in a sense of the language and the system, but by bringing your own personal experiences and explaining it, it was like, I guess it's akin to having a nice little cartoon graph somewhere with a real pointed, you go, aha, I understand the concept now. So
That's really good to hear, Keith, because as you know, the work is grounded in Jerry's PhD. So it's grounded in a lot of academia and theory. And it came to life, our work came to life through practical application. And so as we were writing the book, we began to think about how to bring those concepts alive in a way that reflected our experiences in our work and in our lives. And that became a key element of what we wanted to do with the book. And when we went back later and looked at what we had written, we would ask ourselves this question, like, do we have a story that illustrates this? Have we shared enough of the what works or what doesn't work as we write about these concepts? So it's really lovely to hear your reflections on that too.
Some of the stories are pretty personal, and so we did ask people permission to, share that. Could we share this story? We're a character in the story, but it's, some of it is, and people were real willing to do that, which was also quite lovely and appreciative. So I know you've held a number of executive positions in business and entertainment industry, and I'm just wondering how you think the book might be helpful to people that are in executive positions or in leadership in organizations.
I think in the last job that I had when I was working for a nonprofit, I think the one great relief off of my shoulders when I decided I wanted to do something different was the fact that I no longer had to answer to boards of directors, which is a consuming process on whatever level, which is needed and something that has to be done, of course. But it's very difficult sometimes getting people to agree on things, and it takes sometimes a very long process. And people can get very stuck in their core beliefs, as you would say. There's a way and the methods that you use that you get people to understand that. And I think that's extremely important. Why are they getting stuck on this particular thing, and how do you get them out of it? When the idea is being attacked, you take it personally and you think they're attacking you. Now, how in the hell do you get around that? That takes a delicate hand and touch and a system like the ones that you're using, which includes, history and knowledge and practices and values and all of those things. And by identifying them and going through that process to do that, you somehow can get to that where you can start to deal with it. And there's a lot of self-knowledge that comes with that, which is, I think, extremely important. But I think on one point there's a system, and then on the other point there's an art to it. And the art can only come with many years of experiences, which you've had. You're seeing things that people don't see, and then being able to guide them through that, or go away from that and then come back at it at a different angle, and then get them to understand, and finally, finding that common ground. I think your system is really open to that, to finding common ground where you can start with agreeing and affirming on something, and then be able to advance out of that. I think that's spectacular in what you've developed in this book, and God knows we need that right now. How do you just look at the Congress? You think the U.S. Congress, I'm speaking of now, and you think of them as esteemed bodies, with incredibly intelligent and sophisticated people, and with what we've been discovering now over these last 4 years is how incredibly inept the systems are, and how all of these personal issues and core issues, and of course money, flowed into these systems and how they impact decision making. So these systems are rampant with all kinds of problems and distortions. And there just comes a point where, if you're feeling that you're stuck, you need something to be able to advance. And it has to be a system where that that it's not like the board of directors selecting somebody to come in to help to advance and find about all the problems there are, which many executives would look at as, oh yeah, okay, well I better get my resume out and get ready. And indeed, that's what they're doing. And so this wouldn't be that. I don't think. I mean, I don't think it would be seen as that, and certainly your reputations would suggest that that's not the case. And I really like that. And I think when I was reading it, and I think I asked you a question about that at some point, and how do you handle that? I mean, people are, no matter what you say, that people are going to say, well, it's the administration that's hired us, and they're still thinking about, can I really say this, and what will happen to me, and all that sort of thing. And again, that's a parallel to, to Trump and the fact that they can't say anything because, I'm going to be primaried otherwise. So there's that. So, and that's got to be a difficult challenge for the two.
It's always interesting when we are invited into conversations with our clients because they're in need of something, they're wanting something. And so then they feel, as they describe the challenges that they're working with, at times I've had people say, it's not all bad. We're like, yeah, actually, we know that it's not all bad, but we need to hear these particular stories because this is what you're wanting to have an exploration around. I don't know if it's years of experience or some of it, I think, is just innate around being able to engender trust in the conversations that we have with people so that they feel comfortable sharing things. And even when we're working with groups and the groups are challenged, we create the circumstances to really invite them into their own curiosity and into their own care, recognizing that everybody is responsible for their impact on the well-being of the group. And I think that's kind of the starting point for a lot of the work that we do with people.
Yeah, and in creating trust, it's the number one communication element in a human being, which is empathy. And you can't really fake that.
That is true.
You can't. People can sense that so quickly, and then the process stops for you there. So you really have to. And again, getting back to what you share, and you share your own vulnerabilities right away. People are just start feeling more comfortable about it. But building trust is such a huge thing in any system and any relationship. And so on one level, you're doing incredible interpersonal relationship work. And on the other hand, you're doing it in a systematic fashion for a system or an organization or a larger group. And how you came to this approach is just sort of fascinating in itself, and the different strengths that you have and how you fit together really well that way. And it's well, it's something made in heaven.
Well, favorite phrase of ours we've been sharing a lot, and it's a foundation to some new writing we're doing, and it kind of goes, without trust there is no us.
Yes indeed.
So that's
it just vibrates with truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's true of any kind of relationship, whether we're talking personal or a team or across an organization or in a community. There is no us if there is no trust. I love that you described the work that we do or what we've written about as a system, because we certainly see it that way. And of course, you only bring the system to life with the personal aspects of that.
Yeah.
I think Jerry and I are working on a couple of fairly significant proposals right now for potential clients. And one of the things we emphasize in these proposals is working with a planning team from the client organization, because we don't go in and tell people what to do, but we work collaboratively with people. We bring processes and frameworks, and they bring the on the ground knowledge of what's happening with the client, what's happening in the environment. And so between these two things, being completely current with what's there and bringing what we know, we're able to create designs that are very pertinent to the situation, because it's like real, in real time, in real life. Then as we build trust with those teams, then that trust emanates out over or across the work that we do as well.
Well, we certainly appreciate the opportunity to visit with you, Keith, and very much appreciate both your perspective as a writer. And I've had the opportunity to read some of your work and the quality of it, and your experience in executive positions. And so we appreciate both those lenses that you bring to the book. Just wondering if you have any sort of final reflections you might want to share with us before we wrap up here.
I'm very curious about, the world intelligence skill, the ability to hold two opposing views at the same time. I'd like you to elaborate on that a little bit. I'm very, very curious about that. I mean, in thought we can do that, but how do you do that when you're in a process of working with people and attempting to meet their goals and their needs, but at the same time holding those two things without really showing one or the other as something that you're leaning towards?
I think one of our starting points is, and this is what you're really sort of talking about in a way, is a characteristic of cognitive dissonance. And it's that as people, as individuals, our brain does not like to hold opposing views. It wants to hold the view it's most comfortable with, and to be in a position of thinking about a view that we're not comfortable in causes us to react pretty negatively to it. I mean, it's psychological science, it's physiological research, is that we just, we react in our body, and not just our brain, but our body reacts in pretty negative ways to holding a view that's opposed to what we believe is the view we do hold.
Right.
So it's not an easy thing. It's a thing of practice, is to say, okay, it's that, in a way, it's a bit of how do I stand in somebody else's shoes? Is a little simplistic, but that's what it is how can I hold in my brain a bit how the other person might see the situation that we're in. That's the invitation. And it takes practice. It's not an easy thing. And we know that we react, our body reacts to not wanting to do it. And so part of what we're trying to do is normalize it. We know this is hard. We know your body reacts this way. We know your brain reacts this way. So don't feel bad about it. Don't chastise yourself. Don't do self-criticism because it's not working well, because you are behaving like any other human being on the planet would behave. Give yourself a little grace to practice this and work with it and learn how to do it. And maybe you only stand in somebody else's shoes for a few minutes. And maybe over time you can dive in a little bit deeper into it and explore a little bit more how someone, and the structure of the 6 dimensions creates sort of a structure for you to be in that exploration. So it's not just, random. There's some comfort in structure as you're in that exploration.
As human beings, we have a tendency to default to yes, no, right, wrong, either or, this, that. And there are often false dichotomies. So just because I'm right doesn't make you wrong in a view. So it's this invitation to hold the 2 yeses, hold the yes and instead of the yes but, and move from there. And I think often that pulls us out of debating about should we do this or should we do that, and moves us into an exploration of, and what are all the other possibilities between this and that, that might open up here. And I think there's a Rumi quote around this, and I won't get it quite right. I'll sort of paraphrase it, but it's this idea that out beyond right doing and wrong doing, there is a field, and I'll meet you there.
That's lovely. I just have one last question. I just don't understand how a flatlander and a seasider can get together and do the amazing work that you're doing. How is that possible?
There are days we wonder.
What? No sea? No sky?
The universe works in mysterious ways is all I can say.
Well, all I can say is, I'm very pleased the two of you have found each other, and I see the happiness between the two of you.
Well,
And there's
thanks
nothing
much.
better than working on something that you love and believe in together. That's a wonderful thing to happen in these years of our life. So God bless you, and I can only wish you the best and try to be as helpful and comforting and as supportive as I can over the coming years.
Thank you, Keith, and thanks for joining us in this conversation today.
It was really a pleasure. Thank you very much.